everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Rofane. I'm Rofane Medisa, and today I'm joined by Lunga Schoeman. And today we'll be talking about the importance of partnerships between NPOs and corporates, and also the transformative power of CSR. Hi, Lunga, how are you?
Hi, Rofane. Thank you very much for having me here. Good.
So, what people don't know is that we had to start recording again.
Yeah. This is the second take.
Second take, and you're like, I'm over it. But I'm doing really, really well. Just like take us on a background of who you are and what is your why on what you do, why you do what you do.
Sure. I mean, in the previous clip, I would have mentioned that it's good to be here. I think it's an important platform for us to have and speak about how we're approaching social investment and how, I guess, the relationship between NGOs and corporates really comes alive for all of us to be able to do what we're doing. A little bit about me. I work for the Development Bank of Southern Africa, responsible for its social investment programs. Previously to that, I also did a similar role in the FMCG space, in the retail space, and also very briefly in the public policy space, working for an NGO, which I think helped me particularly to gain an understanding of how it takes and what it takes to deliver some of the mandates that we as corporates tend to give to nonprofits. And so that was a good contextual experience that now has allowed me to both be able to merge what I practice from a social investment point of view and also with the context of what it takes to fully deliver on some of those mandates.
Yeah, and let's get to the heart of it. What does corporate responsibility look like for you beyond the boardroom?
Sure. Well, I'll speak on two major things. One is I'm personally a product of social investment. I was supported from a very young age by someone who decided to support young children in my community with school uniform. And I never understood or could articulate what that job was, but I knew it was definitely their job. But also it was God's grace and all of that. But I could never articulate what that is. And so I think over time, understanding what this role entails and fully appreciating that it really isn't about the person doing it, but about the mandate that sometimes is beyond us. To be able to do the work that we're doing. But from a DPSA point of view, CSI for us is important because we believe on this notion of building Africa's prosperity. So on a day-to-day basis, my colleagues are looking at financing and financing instruments to literally build the continent from an infrastructure point of view. But we know that as we build prosperity, we are mindful that we operate in a society where not everybody is equal. And there are people that are not yet experiencing or feeling or appreciating any form of prosperity. And so our social investment programs are to do that, to close the inequality gap, to reach the people that otherwise are not being reached, to go in places that people are not going, and try and get everybody on this bandwagon of prosperity and equality.
Yeah. Off camera, we talked about why certain campaigns or initiatives, when done while with good intent, a lot of people get so upset because it just seems like a checkbox. And you mentioned the concept of Ubuntu and say that when it doesn't look like a branding exercise, it fits within what we believe as Ubuntu, that I am because you are, I give not because I expect, but because I am, if you're good, I'm good. And what is it so important for organizations to understand why there's often such uproar, especially in this digital age where everyone has access to social media and can just air out their opinions?
Yeah. Look, at face value, CSI appears to be a very easy thing to do, right? You get a budget. That's
going to be interesting.
You get a budget, it gets allocated to you. You have to give it to society and support people, right? And I think inherently, every single person has got a good heart. A lot of people wish they could also give and support people, but they don't have the means. But I imagine if you are so privileged that it's your day-to-day job to go and give, right? But it being so easy to articulate, it's also a science. There's a science behind it. We don't just give money for the sake of giving money. There's legislative frameworks in terms of how we do that. There's compliance in terms of who we work with. And so it's always a blurred line because it's also an issue of the heart. So whatever you do, There's always got to be someone saying, but why not this way? Or why not this organization? Or why not this society? And so those are some of the things that we in the sector always have to grapple with in terms of who we fund and how do we fund, but also the pressure to PR it, the pressure to have it visible, which then becomes the challenge, right? Because I think, and as I was saying offline, that more and more people are able to see between the PR, if something is authentic and if something is not. If something is done for the camera and for the moment, if there's a genuine, really deliberate intention to do well. So I think the pressure is always on us as practitioners to strike the right balance. And one of the ways that we do that well is to choose the right partners in doing that work that will be able to deliver on the mandate, but also safeguard both the integrity of the corporate and the integrity of the beneficiary and the people that we serve. It's important that as we give, that we make sure that we don't diminish the integrity and the humanness of the people that we support.
Absolutely. And then would you say, I mean, there are several issues across South Africa. I mean, within Africa alone, there are just so many societal and community issues that we face. And sometimes I question, is there a need for more MPO and corporate collaborations and partnerships? Or is there a need for more strategy put in place and more systems put in place to ensure that communities are not always in a state of need?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to probably be controversial, not intentionally.
Yeah. I've
always personally thought that, well, from what I've seen, there's probably too many non-profits at a time and too many non-profits doing the same thing, if we're really being honest.
What do you mean?
You probably easily find in one community 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 organizations running soup kitchens, right? There is a need for it, but I always ask the question is, to what extent is there some level of knowledge sharing amongst organizations? Could it help for them to consolidate instead of us receiving 10 different proposals of the same thing being asked to us? So I mean, there's that over-saturation, particularly in the sector. But of course, the school of thought will say there's a need, and therefore people start organizations for whatever. But I do think from an unintentional consequence point of view, we may have, we're not having enough conversations about how we continue dependency.
Sure. Lunga.
To say, we are serving the same issue, but all of us are throwing money into it. And it's all this, it's like a washing machine effect. We just keep on doing the exact same thing for the exact same population, and none of us are exiting or thinking about exiting. And so I think many of us are starting to have those very bold conversations to say, can I communicate that this is not a 15-year journey with an NGO, that it's for a limited period, for a particular outcome, and once I get there, we need to start considering other pathways. And so, we're having the same conversations today with another partner about this thing about creating dependency and enabling dependency through funding. And I think it's a conversation that we'll always have in the sector. When do we leave? How do we best prepare organizations to be sustainable without us? And I think we'll always have those conversations in the sector. I don't think there's a solution to it as yet.
I think especially when you look at, and I'm not even trying to be political, but when there was a cut with USAID, and then it seemed that everything stopped.
Yeah.
And then my question was, were there never systems for you to be able to go on without you, because they were supposed to be empowering solutions, not enabling solutions?
And to be honest, the work that we're doing from someone said this in a conference, that social investments is an issue of the heart.
Ooh.
Right? My heartstrings have to beat for something in order for me to also consider supporting it alongside. The strategy will always probably will always be, you can articulate strategy around something that you love much easier than something that you're not passionate about. But then all of those heartstrings probably change over time. People's passions change over time. And so how do you prepare an organization when it's not going to be Lunga sitting in the chair, but the Lunga sitting there will have a different focus and a different passion.
Yeah.
Right? But here you've created this beast of an organization and created dependency that they can't survive the next era and all of that. Same with COVID, right? COVID caught us all by huge surprise, and NPOs grappled with what do they do next, right? Corporates even struggled to say how do they allocate funding and whatnot. And so we must definitely start thinking more intentionally about how we prepare non-profits to withstand any form of shock. That whether it's exiting, whether it's depletion of funding, or anything like that. As
Yeah, this is such a real conversation. From your personal perspective and experience, what personal lessons have you learned doing this work, particularly doing this work with Breadline Africa?
Yeah. Fundamental lesson is I must always be prepared to learn. There's still issues in the space that still shock me, and I really don't have answers for.
That is so interesting to hear you say that.
And, because it's people's lives, right? You can't also take on the posture that because you've got this capital, that it almost enables you or now coronates you to be this person who can solve things. It's not. So always be willing to learn, always be willing to test ideas and grapple with things. Constantly reading, I think, is always important in the space. And one of the lessons with particularly on the partnership with Breadline is always important to leverage organizations and their strengths. I've learned, don't put an NGO into a corner that they don't know how to get out of, because you have funding.
I would love for you to elaborate. I know I've been saying this, but I feel like you really need to elaborate on this point, because I've seen that happen. And oftentimes you'd see the very passion and fire that burned that organization to do things with or without funding. It just dies, especially when they're cornered. And it seems as though then their branding changes to suit that particular corporate. Now their colors are this and their language is different. And I'm like, what's going on? But because they know that there's a need within a certain community, they're like, well, I mean, it's a means to an end.
Or we'll go with the money.
We'll go with...
Which I understand, right? Someone
tough.
has to source income. Someone has to show sustainability. But I've seen many cases of how going where you are not equipped does more damage than good, because you stretch yourself as an organization. You test with people's lives and test with people's settings. And you probably might not get any further capital. With this one chance, this pot of money, we have to do well with it. And then, if the approach is not right and the fit is not good, all of that collapses, and we would have wasted both money and time and all of that. So it's very important to always work and align organizations towards what they're good at and what's fit for them. You can't really ask a Pick n Pay to build an airplane. It's just that. Right? Their co-workers retail, leverage retail, and get the people to do the airplane, to build the airplane. So that's just the quick example of what I'm trying to say. And the other important work that I think we need to always consider is the people behind the work. Right? I've started a culture within the network of organizations that we work with, the TBSA, of really spending time to check in with the team delivering the work. We sometimes ask for the impossible. There's always pressure. People travel and leave their families. People tend to also deal with organizational dynamics. And then we as the funders tend to want results. And so we've definitely put emphasis, definitely from my side, to engage with the people behind the work. Their stability, their mental stability, emotional stability is as important or even more important than anything. Because once those people are shaken by anything, their output is not going to look great. So we definitely spend a fair amount of time to also invest with the people behind the work.
Sure, this is so heavy. Yeah, in previous episodes, so we spoke to Janine and Dana, and they spoke about why it's so important to listen to communities. And then in a previous episode, we spoke to Aquile, who spoke about hope. And in this work of early childhood development, in this work of CSR, etc., I'd never really considered the aspect of hope, especially with communities like Komati. Had you been there, and what had you seen prior to Breadline Africa kind of coming in and saying, hey, there's a real need for help here and hope?
Yeah, so I've been to Komati with Janine and team.
Yeah.
This whole notion of the green economy and green transition and all of those things, I think most of us have some high level of understanding of what it means.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, theory that speaks to it in terms of what exactly it means, decarbonizing and all of those things. But I think Komati, that's where you kind of really see what that actually means on the ground, and not necessarily the positive, but the negative of it. That here were people who were fully dependent on this site and this power station. They've built lives around it, built families around it, and that is gone, and that is no longer going to be there. That's phasing out, and now grappling with the fact that really there isn't much of an economy because people are not working. The need for their skills is now elsewhere, no longer in that community. And so, yeah, imagine just being uprooted from your community, not because of any war, but because of supposed progression.
Sure.
But that progress is not felt there still, right? So I think I saw firsthand, just that level of despondency. People just not sure what to do next. I mean, there was one case of an ECD that literally seems or appears to be open 24 hours because the parents have jobs far away and they have to travel back, and some leave their kids at whatever time of the night because of an availability of work elsewhere. So just that disruption to the community, but also to children. And so that the whole Komati thing for me was a very big eye opener, and therefore which then puts the spotlight on the importance of ensuring that the transition is just, the transition is fair, the transition does not leave people behind, and the transition doesn't affect children and the experience of life. And so hence we are interested as a DBSA to be involved in this work and working with the Breadline to see what we could do. Yeah,
sure, that's heartbreaking, hey? But heartbreaking, but there's hope, right?
There's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope. I think there's hope. There's quite a number of people being interested in supporting the community of Komati, and I invite as many other corporates to engage with Breadline, and the Presidential Climate Commission, really about Komati and what could be their contribution to Komati. Is it to build an economy again there? Is it to support youth and youth upskilling? Is it to support ECD? Is it to provide nutrition? Because now people are not working. How do they access meals and all of that? So there's various streams that many corporates and many partners can invest in, and I think the opportunity the door is open for many of them to come and join us in that work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, what exciting projects or partnerships is DBSA looking to get into?
Great. We've been.
Is that great? Are you like, oh, we're done?
Yeah. I think we're just working on some very incredible things. It's so good to work for an organization that really lives development impact.
Sure.
And so some of these ideas that we have a home at the TBSA, and people are always interested to to see how they could help and partner with us. So I think it's a beautiful environment for a development practitioner to work in. But one of the incredible things we're working on is an ECD infrastructure fund. I don't know if you know, but there's a huge focus currently to register ECDs and formalize them or to heighten their formalization as a sector. And one of the areas that we are going to be contributing intentionally on is infrastructure, building and renovating ECDs, particularly those that are nearing or very close to compliance, but need some very small support, which is small in our terms, but to raise money for a building or an extra classroom or to replace your roof because you need that certificate is big money for some ECDs. And so we've been focusing on some of those. We're working with a range of partners who have contributed and committed millions of rands into this project. So it's a fund that will be housed in the DBSA, particularly focus on ECDs to help them to become compliant. Finally, this program speaks to this issue of collaboration, where it may very well be housed at the DBSA, but anyone who's interested in supporting it can do it. So it's fluid like that.
Wow. Yeah.
And we are targeting a particular set of ECDs, and therefore, once we are able to get those ECDs over the lines, then we can get to and support others. But I think what has happened in the sector, too many people are investing in two different things, and there is no consolidation or a compact. And I think that's what we're trying to address with the fund, which I think is going to be a game changer, and we want to launch it in the next couple of months. So it's going to be exciting.
Wow. Gosh, thanks for this conversation, Lunga. Despite the little mishap you had in the beginning. I just really appreciate your heart for the work that you do, and the organization itself, and the partners that you've strategically chosen to help contribute to community. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been great. Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We will see you next time.